Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this video series. So, in this series, we're going to be talking about how to code in the Java programming language. So, this is actually the first video of the series where I'll be posting pretty much almost daily-ish, and we're just going to be going over the basics of this object-oriented programming language. This is also probably going to be the first series on my YouTube channel. So, if you like the video, be sure to like it, share with your friends, all that stuff. So let's get right into the video and the topic we're going to be discussing today. We're just going to be going over, before we actually look at Java, we're going to be going over what exactly is programming, the concept of programming, and the idea behind it. So you guys can, I guess, better relate to the concept if you're a new programmer. So it'll be easier to understand things going forward. So what is programming? Programming is the process of telling someone or something how to do certain things by giving it instructions to those things. So, here is a very simple analogy to this. So, what is some of you, not me, but maybe my sister, they like to bake. And by bake, I'm talking about making all these cookies and some sorts. Now, whenever you make any food or you bake anything, you have to follow a recipe, which is like a set of instructions you follow in order to convert your eggs, flour, whatever ingredients into something that's edible and delicious. How does this relate to programming? Well, programming is basically taking some input, transforming it, and giving it an output. That's kind of what you do in programming. You have some sort of input, you have some algorithm or function to transform it, and then you have a nice clean output. So let's look at an example. Before we look, so here is an example of a program. So in the real world, a teacher may guide a student to the computer lab. So here's a diagram that we'll be following. And notice that it's a helpful diagram, but we need to tell the student exactly how to get to the computer lab. So a set of instructions might look like this. Walk forward past 5 classrooms, turn left, walk forward past 6 classrooms, turn right, and walk forward past 3 classrooms. That's kind of what a program is in the real world. Now, how do we write programs? We write them using programming language. They're the language used to write computer programs. They're the means of writing a programming language. Think of it like this. Let's go back to the analogy of the recipe. You have the recipe, which is a set of instructions, a code, or a program. Now, what is that recipe written in? It might be written in French, Spanish, English, any language you choose. That's the language you use to write the recipe, to write your program. Similarly, like Spanish, French, and English, we may have Java, Scratch, Python, C++, these other programming languages which you use to write your program. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so what are some other applications? Video games, Fortnite, Netflix, any software on Android or Apple, iOS, Mac OS, things like that. So now I have switched over to Scratch. So this is called block programming. I know we're not going to be talking about, I'm not going to be teaching you how to program in Scratch, but I figured this would be taking snapshots of Scratch would be able to allow you to get some good ideas of programming concepts. So as you can see on Scratch, on the left-hand side of the screen, you have all your blocks and options. On the right-hand side, you have the sprite, which is the cat. So how do we make the cat say hello world? Well, this is exactly what we want to use. We want to use the say block, which says say hello world. Simple as that, right? But let's break it down further. So remember how I said earlier, how every program has some sort of input, some algorithm or function, or an output. Let's see if we can match the hello world in Scratch to this diagram. So what is our input? Our input is the text we want the cat to say. In this case, it's hello world. This is the raw text or the raw material of what we want our program to do. Then we have the algorithm, the way of doing of taking the input and transforming it. So in order for our hello world input or to be usable in any form, we must use the say block. We use the say block in order to get an output of the cat saying hello world. And as you can see here, these three simple ideas in, this order produce a program with an input and an output. So that's the basic of this programming. So now we're going to go ahead and switch to um, Replit. So I'll be using Replit to teach the majority of the course. And today we're just going to be going over some of the basics in Java. By basics, I mean very basics. We're not going to be talking about variables in this episode. We'll talk about variables in the next episode. Right now, we're going to talk about how exactly um, a Java programming file might look like and the nuances behind it. So right off the bat, you can see here a relatively simple code. One thing that you'll notice is that you'll have a class, this weird long text here, and some text within this text over here. So let's break it down line by line. The first line, public class main. Whenever you write any program, any code, you always do it in a class, and you run this class as a way of running your code. So in this case, you have the class main. Now, one thing that's important in Java is that your class name, which is main, must match your file name, which is over here, main.java. If these two don't match, your code will not compile and it will not run. Does that make sense? So that's the first line. And after we say this declaration of a class, we have curly braces, which extends from here to here. It's highlighted. Then we have the main method. If you want, basically in the main, every Java program must have like a main method of some sort if you're calling an action to do something to like the shell, the terminal, etc. By default, it always comes with the main method. So you have this main method here. Don't worry too much about what these mean yet. We'll explain. You'll understand what these mean in the coming videos. Just memorize this for now, and this is synonymous to your main method. And everything you do right now has to be inside these curly brackets over here, if that makes sense. Otherwise, your code won't run. So now we have comments. The purpose of comments is so that the human is able to understand how exactly your code works, like what's going on in this program. So let's say you're I don't know, like you're an app developer or something. You write this huge blob of code, a huge script of code, and you give it to another person on your developer team. Well, if you just give them the code without any context, they'll have to sift through it and really I don't know, they'll have to sift through it and spend some time trying to figure out what it means. Whereas if you have comments, you can basically explain to them, okay, so this function will do this. This other function will do this and this. It'll be easier for them to understand. That's what a comment is. So you have a single line comment, which is just 2 forward slashes, and you can do a multiple line comment with a forward slash and asterisk, and then your comment, and then a asterisk and a backward slash. So that's the comment. Next is we're going to go over the print statement. So this print statement is system.out.println, hello world, and when you run it, it's going to take a while. Yep. But when you run it, you should see hello world. So what does this do? Basically, you're printing to the console or the terminal window. And how does it work? Well, if we go back to our Scratch example, let's take a look back here. As you can see here, we had an input, we had like a function, and then we had an output. Let's try and map this to Java. So if you notice here, what I'm highlighting is our input, right? Because if I just get rid of this, you just have the function system.out.println. This is kind of like the say block in Scratch. So I'm going to comment. This is like the say block in Scratch. This is kind of your algorithm, your function, your way of doing things. What goes inside the parentheses is your input. So let's go ahead and paste that back here. And if you notice in the terminal, what's over here, this is the output. It's like the cat saying hello world in scratch. So um let's say you wanted to print another line. Let's do this. And what you can do is you can do print ln, or you can just do print. The difference between the two is ln adds an extra line spacing. So yeah, it adds an extra line to space. And what is the error here? Okay, this should work, I believe. Yeah, so see, as you can, I don't know why it's throwing me an error, but yeah, don't worry about it. But basically, when we had print ln, it added an extra space between the two hello worlds, whereas when we took away that ln, it just printed them on the same line. So that makes sense. So that's basically all we covered in the first lesson. And in the second lesson, we're going to talk about variables and get really into the idea of like object-oriented programming and things like that. This is just to get you familiar with programming, what it's about, how it works, and kind of like a basic class in Java. So we'll be talking more in the next episode, which should be posted to soon. So thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next one.